Hello, my name is Franz Kafka, and today I want to talk to you about my newest literary work, The Hunger Artist. However, before we get started with that, I think it'd be a good idea to let you know a little bit about myself. So, my name again is Franz Kafka. I was born in Prague, which is part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, to my parents, Herman and Julie Kafka. I was born along with 5 other siblings, 2 brothers by the name of George and Heinrich, who unfortunately both passed away before I was the age of 7. And I also had 3 sisters by the names of Gabrielle, Valerie, and Ollie. Unfortunately, they also passed away during the Holocaust in World War II. I went to school and studied to become a lawyer. However, when I completed my practice, I was employed by an insurance company, and it made me delegate writing, which is my true passion, to the background. And so I resigned from that position just so I could take another job that would allow me to pursue writing more prevalently. And that leads me to today, where we're going to be talking about my newest literary work, The Hunger Artist. Now, The Hunger Artist is a story about a man who lives to entertain, basically. He wants to be loved by the people who watch him. So his whole act is that he fasts for days, weeks, and even months at a time. He has his manager, the impresario, who strategically places the Hunger Artist in a busy spot in town so that all the townsfolk can come around whenever they feel and watch him fast for days, weeks, and months at a time. Unfortunately for the Hunger Artist, he never truly feels fulfilled because his whole act is fasting and not eating. And all the people that watch, they don't watch because they're so impressed by his achievement. They watch because they're skeptical. They watch tirelessly to see if he's sneaking food, eating while no one's watching, anything like that. And which the Hunger Artist never does. He never sneaks food. He even sings during the night. People who can't see but are in earshot can see that he's honestly not eating. But that still leads to skepticism because they believe he just mastered the art of eating and singing at the same time. So, unfortunately for him, he can never truly be loved by the people because of the true skepticism of human nature. And even the people who are assigned to watch him overnight, they're usually butchers of the town. They willingly turn a blind eye to the Hunger Artist just so he could sneak food. And he honestly takes that as an insult, which is understandable because he's doing something to his body to entertain. And in turn, they're not entertained by the act. They are entertained by the skepticism and wanting to catch him cheating, I guess you could say. So as the fad of Hunger Artists dies down, the Hunger Artist joins a circus where he is basically a sideshow act. He sits in the front of the tent and people stare at him as they watch by. There's a counter on how many days it's been since he's fasted, although the circus attendants don't check it regularly and honestly don't keep it up to date. So that obviously upsets the Hunger Artist. He's not beloved. He's not loved. The only people that stop by are the skeptics again. Until one day, a circus guest comes by and they see the cage unattended. So they go to check on the cage and they see the Hunger Artist buried in the straws. And that person humors him in his last words. In his last words, the Hunger Artist asks to be forgiven. He just claims that he wanted to be admired by everybody. And the person who's talking to him says, yes, everyone admires you because what you do is definitely hard and it's not normal. But the Hunger Artist responds by saying that they shouldn't. And why shouldn't they? Because he says that he fasts not because he loves to fast. He fasts because he could never find food in life that he liked. And with those words, he dies. So that concludes the brief summary of the story. Now let's talk about the themes. The first theme I want to talk about is the skepticism. It is human nature for us to be skeptics. Seeing is believing, in my opinion. And if you see something, you want to believe it, but there's always going to be that thought in your mind that they're cheating or there's some sort of trick, there's some catch. Like with magic, you see these insane feats of magic on the streets, but you know that it's not actually magic. You know that there's got to be some sort of hidden agenda or some sort of hidden trick, if you will, that gets it done and allows you to see this amazing feat. And that's just how we are as humans. So in the story, the Hunger Artist just wants to be admired and loved for his act, but he will never truly be admired because humans will be skeptic by nature. They will always assume that he's eating during the night when no one's looking. They will assume that people are sneaking him food, and they will assume that it's all just for show, and this isn't real. Any of it isn't real. And that's one of the main themes I wanted to portray in this story. That humans, they don't like to believe in things that are unnatural. They always think that there's a catch or something like that. And that is something that I wanted to touch in this story. Another theme I wanted to touch is self-love. So the hunger artist works his whole life to be admired by others because he can't love himself. He's never truly happy with himself because he's never allowed to fast as long as he would want to because of his manager. They always pull him out after 40 days, make a whole scene and show so weak and his body is so nimble. But it's just because that he's so unhappy because he never gets to fully fulfill his fasting record. He eventually does break it, but he's never happy with himself because, again, he's not fasting because he loves doing it. He's fasting because he doesn't like any food. So he's not doing it for the right things. He's doing it for the wrong things. And since he can't love himself, how can he expect the people around him to admire him and love him? And that is another theme of the story that I wanted to portray to you guys as well. So now that we've talked about the hunger artist a lot throughout this first part of the discussion here, I want to talk about the impresario. He's another one of the main characters in my story. He is the manager for the hunger artists. And as a manager of any artist for any entertainment medium, you would want to respect your client and show them that you actually care and love their act and what they do. The impresario does not do this. He does what he thinks is right, but it ultimately causes his client, the hunger artist, to not be happy with himself. Because the hunger artist can go a lot longer than 40 days, a lot longer. And like I said before, he does break his record, but on the 40th day, every time, the impresario makes a big show out of taking him out of his cage. They forcefully take him out of his cage, and he looks so upset. And he's not upset because he's hungry and his body is weak. He's upset because the impresario is making him stop fasting. And the impresario just plays up to the crowd on a megaphone that his body is so weak. His body can't take this anymore. We have to feed him now. And he even gets volunteers from the crowd to force feed him. And it's honestly humiliating. So as a character, to me, he is portrayed as not a good friend, not a good manager, and not a good person, because at the end of the day, you would want your client to be happy. And if he's not happy, then you're not doing your job. So we talked about the theme of self-love. And this is where it leads to irony for me, because the irony of the whole situation is that the hunger artist just wants to be loved and admired by the people that watch his act. And the fact that he can't love and admire himself means that he can't be loved and admired by the people that are watching him perform. It's honestly ironic, because it would be simple to just love yourself. And when you love yourself and you're happy with what you're doing, that is radiated off of you and people can sense that. So the fact that he can't be happy because the other people aren't admiring or loving his act is all due to the fact that he can't be happy with himself. He's not doing it for himself. He's doing it for the fame and the love and the admiration. If he was doing it for himself, that would come off as positive, and I feel like the audience would react to that so much better. Okay, now I want to talk about one of the symbols from the story. The main symbol for me is the cage. It symbols his separation from the people watching and himself, the person performing the act, but it also symbolizes his alienation from society. He is basically living on his own within this cage. He never leaves the cage. He's always fasting. He's never eating. He never interacts with anybody. He sings during the night, yes, but at the beginning of the story, he starts talking to the guests. He even answers questions, anything. But when he realizes that they're just asking because they're being skeptics, he stops that completely. He alienates himself, which in turn turns everybody off to the whole experience. You don't want to watch something that's boring and not engaging, right? You want to watch something that is exciting and riveting and put you on the edge of your seat. Yes, starving yourself for who knows how long, however many days, is definitely exciting, but it's a 40-day act. And if you're not being entertained the whole time, then you're going to become disinterested. And I understand that. So the cage itself also forms like a barrier from the audience, not physically, well, physically obviously, but also like emotionally. They can't emotionally feel why the hunger artist is doing this. He's doing this to entertain and to be admired, but they just see it as a way to sneak food in, or so no one bothers him, or that so they can't like check physically if he's hiding food in his cage anywhere. So I understand that the cage is a physical barrier. It's also a barrier to the audience in a way. They just see a man who is probably cheating when no one is looking. And if they honestly think that way, then nobody wins here. So that finishes my discussion on my newest literary work, The Hunger Artist. If you would like to give it a read, please do so. I'd greatly appreciate it. I worked hard on it, and I honestly love this story, love the characters, love the message, love the premise, the symbolism, the irony. It's just a great story about human nature and how we are as humans, and the mission to love yourself and to be loved by others, which is something that every human wants. So thank you so much for watching this video. I really appreciate it.